Hello and welcome back to Time Under Tension. I'm your host, Olivia Gravengard, and it's my purpose, passion in life to help people reach their health and fitness goals by establishing a collaborative relationship with their bodies, learning what helps them feel the most fueled and energized so they can continue to move and show up in their lives for as long as they desire. In my own journey, this has been an ongoing process of shifting mindset from one of deprivation and cyclic dieting, cyclic increases in exercise, followed by crashes in energy, and even dislike for the gym at certain points after overtraining, and slowly coming into a place of balance where I'm able to listen to my body from day to day and nourish it intuitively and move it in a way that feels good and helps me feel very balanced, strong, flexible in every other area of my life. And this is exactly where I help my clients go as well. So this week, talking about grazing, mindless grazing. So what I so often hear from clients or friends, anyone who's paying any kind of attention to their health and fitness journey and their relationship with food is that when they have a plan, when they've meal prepped, they feel very organized, they feel like they're able to execute pretty consistently. But then usually if there's kind of this breaking point, whether it's a social event or especially at nighttime after a long day of work, they find themselves just giving in. And before they know it, mindlessly grazing, moving from the pantry to the fridge to the shelves to the candy bowl and around, and eventually deciding that tomorrow would be a better day to get started again. And the endless cycle repeats itself. This can be one of the most toxic and disempowering cycles because you can come into the day with all of the best intentions. You might have even ended the day before having set strong intentions for this day. And then you find yourself in this pattern once again. And what that starts to do is unravels your identity, where you felt like you were a disciplined and committed person. Now you're having this accumulation of evidence that maybe you're not, that maybe you can't stick to your goals, that maybe you don't have the willpower to avoid your cravings, that maybe you will never achieve what you want with your body. And that is a really tough place to be because once you're in that cycle, it becomes a self-limiting belief that then drives your behavior and starts to add momentum into this loop, this downward spiral. And it can feel very hopeless. Now, there's a lot of reasons that we break out of that. Sometimes we hit a point in our lives where it's a breaking point. We develop some illness, we experience a loss, we see our parents decline and recognize that that could also be us if we don't change our ways. There's so many things that could happen that then trigger us to make positive change. And sometimes it is just a daily commitment that doesn't ever seem to be followed through, and that can be difficult as well. But if you're in a state where you're wanting to make a proactive change and would rather avoid hitting rock bottom or experiencing loss or seeing your health decline before you actually make the change, I think it's really important to know that there's hope and that there's some really helpful strategies for breaking out of the cycle of both overeating and mindless grazing, which typically go hand in hand. So, first off, your habits around eating need to be approached in terms of an entire day. If you are busy during the day, very active, maybe at work, very active mentally, maybe a little bit higher state of stress that you're sustaining throughout the day, I find that a lot of people tend to like to fast throughout the morning and may like break their fast or start their eating window in terms of like intermittent fasting language around noon. But what I so often see with this, especially in females, is that this often then leads to more overeating at night So if you find that overeating at night is a big problem for you and that it's something that you have had trouble breaking through on and establishing healthier habits, then I would encourage you to approach your eating window differently, shift it earlier in your day, break your fast a little bit earlier. You may not be hungry, but it's important that you're fueling in advance. In so many ways, I think listening to the body and allowing hunger to drive when you eat is important. But we live in an age where most of us are pretty caffeinated. We live in a state of high stress. We're very busy. It's quite easy to go the morning without eating, but we kind of set ourselves up for then stress eating later in the day in an attempt to kind of catch up calorically on top of the other needs that overeating is meeting, which I'll get into in a minute. So shifting your eating window earlier and making sure that you're getting adequate fats, proteins, and carbs throughout your day. I really like to start the day strong with a very protein, fat heavy breakfast with some sustainable complex carbs, whether that's like sweet potatoes or some sourdough bread or a mix of different carb sources. And that can start your day off right and get on top of your caloric needs, your protein needs, and just your abilities to sustain yourself for the day so you're not constantly playing this game of catch up. Another thing that this does is it cues to yourself that it's a priority for you to take care of yourself. When we go into a day and right out of the gates, we are focused on what we need to do, who we need to call, who needs what from us, and we just hit the ground running with all of these others-oriented tasks, we put ourselves on the back burner. We say, okay, well, whatever I need, I can get that later. That can then lead to this sense of rebellion in the evening when we're finally off work and we feel like we deserve to enjoy ourselves, we deserve to treat ourselves, and there's this part of us that's kind of demanding that we do so. But when we do choose to fuel ourselves early in the day and take the time to make a good meal and to really nourish our bodies and prepare for what's ahead, we cue to ourselves that we are a priority, that we're going to fill our cup first, so to speak, and that we're going to go into the day out of a full and healthy sense of self. We're fueling our bodies, our minds, so that we can then show up effectively throughout the day. And this can really help emotionally and physically combat some of that nighttime overeating. Another thing that can often trigger overeating and grazing is the fact that we often associate resting, taking a break, getting a mental reset, physically relaxing with eating. If the only times that we are resting in our day are times that we are eating, there are going to be times where we feel like we need to eat and truly we just need to rest. And so creating moments through your day every 90 minutes or so to just take 5 minutes to just center yourself, take a breath, find some slow dopamine. That does not mean scrolling. It may mean walking around. It may mean talking to someone in the office who you really like connect with, and after which you feel very full. Finding ways to fill yourself that aren't related to food. This does not mean avoiding eating. Again, we started this conversation talking about the importance of fueling consistently throughout the day, but it does mean establishing patterns of rest and recharge that are not just related to eating. And so it's important that you start to dissociate relaxation, fun, resting from always meaning that food is involved. Another strategy for kind of breaking down this association in order to reestablish it in a healthy way is during the initial stages of breaking this habit, making sure that you're not eating while you're doing anything else, or rather, that you're not doing anything else other than eating when it's time to eat. So at night, when it's time to eat and you do want to fuel yourself and recharge from the day, and your body's in a rested state and in a great place to digest, and you're home with the family, or you finally have the evening off to yourself and it's time for a meal, that you really are attentive and focused on that meal alone. When we tie it into activities like watching TV or scrolling on Instagram, we start to associate the dopamine release with those things with having the food, and we kind of get this compounded dopamine release that can cause a crash on the other side. And it disconnects us from our body and our hunger and fullness signals throughout our eating session. Eating takes it takes about 20 minutes after eating to really grasp your level of fullness. And so most of us tend to scarf down food pretty quickly, and we do so while we're distracted, which then also inhibits our body from producing the appropriate digestive enzymes to even break down that food. And so we just exacerbate this issue of being so disconnected from ourselves, which then just continues to reinforce the patterns of overeating because we just don't have awareness of our hunger signals and our body isn't breaking down that food very well to begin with. And so it is more nutrient starved. And another note on that, making sure that throughout the day you are getting adequate micronutrients as well as macronutrients is going to help with some of that hunger that may not be related to caloric intake so much as it is related to a need for micronutrients intake to be met. So making sure that you're eating well balanced meals, that you're eating just dense micronutrients throughout the day is going to be helpful for managing cravings and ensuring that your body's getting what it needs. So having these strategies, I think, is really helpful and kind of coming full circle back to the eating window. If intermittent fasting is something that you enjoy and having an eating window seems to be helpful for you, I think it can be a really great tool to tack onto this, as well as just supporting the body's metabolic processes and making sure that you're not keeping blood sugar super high for a prolonged amount of time and making sure that blood sugar is coming back down into your ideal functional ranges before bed. Moving that eating window earlier where you're fueling before you get into your day and fueling consistently throughout the day, and then you finish your eating, say after work, you come home, have dinner, and kind of cut it off there. You also kind of put a stop to that tendency to graze and overeat at night. So having that last meal where you're being really fully present, you're slowing down, you're not doing anything else while you're eating. And then after that meal, you kind of cut it off there, go brush your teeth, make some tea, kind of signaling to yourself that the eating window is done. All of those in combinations can be really, really helpful strategies for breaking this habit of grazing and overeating that so often disempowers us and derails us from our health and fitness goals. Nutrition is complicated, but there also are so many simple principles that can keep us moving towards our goals consistently. I think it's really important that you take what you need and leave the rest. And this process of even understanding what you need is something that has to be developed over time. You have to learn what your body needs. And just like with any relationship, it takes time, attentiveness, and communication in order to establish a pattern of eating and a nutrition plan that's going to work best for you. This is a great time to work with a coach who can help you objectively kind of approach this and give you some tools for planning your nutrition. May even provide you with a customized meal plan so that you can continue to progress towards your goals and have the structure that you need to do so while also learning how to eat more intuitively. And this is exactly what I do as a coach. So if this is something that you're interested in, please feel free to reach out. This is what I'm passionate about. I'm happy to hop on a call with you and kind of talk about your goals, and see if this is something that could be beneficial for you. But in the meantime, I would encourage you to just try out these strategies. Go into it with the belief that you can change, that there are strategies for overcoming these habits, and that doing so will only continue to bolster your confidence and move you towards your goals. Thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. Please do remember to like and share and subscribe. If this was beneficial for you and it made you think of someone who may struggle with this, please send it to them. I think it's so important that we just spread knowledge. We each have our own really unique arsenal of information and wisdom that we've accumulated and that we've tapped into over time. And so as a community that's so interestingly connected online, we have this gift of being able to share everything that we know with people. So if this resonates with you, please remember to share it and spread the love. Again, thank you guys so much for subscribing and for all your support. I will catch you next time on Time Under Tension.